Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the most compelling corporate turnarounds in recent history, the story of Ocean Network Express, or ONE. If you want a literal masterclass in how to navigate global chaos, from port shutdowns to complete supply chain fracturing, and somehow come out on top, you are absolutely in the right place. Okay, let's dive right into this. How exactly does a global shipping line go from bleeding $586 million in the red to forecasting a jaw-dropping $15 billion in profit over just 3 years? It's a staggering financial whiplash, and understanding the mechanics behind this massive shift reveals pretty much everything you need to know about modern global logistics. If you've ever been anywhere near a major port, you know these ships. The ON Columba, with that striking, unmistakable magenta hull. It absolutely refuses to blend into the sea of standard gray and blue shipping containers. And, their business strategy is exactly the same. Bold, disruptive, and just impossible to ignore. So, here's our agenda for this explainer. First, an introduction to ONE. Then we'll look at the massive profit turnaround, followed by how they navigated supply chain shocks. After that, we'll unpack their $20 billion investment, and finally, their path to achieving net zero emissions. All right, Section 1, Introduction to ONE, a global logistics giant. To really grasp this turnaround, we first have to understand the unprecedented scale of their operations. And this brilliantly illustrates that. ONE offers a massive network of 156 weekly services spanning over 120 countries. From the super busy trans-Pacific routes connecting Asia and North America, all the way to extensive intra-Asia and European networks. To put that into perspective, roughly 80 to 90% of all global trade volume travels by sea. ONE is a fundamental, vital piece of that infrastructure puzzle. They are literally moving the physical economy across oceans every single day. So, how did they actually get here? Well, it was a fast, highly calculated journey. ONE was established in 2017 through the consolidation of 3 parent companies, and they officially commenced operations in 2018. By bringing these entities together, they quickly achieved a staggering $1 billion in cost reduction synergies. $1 billion. You might be wondering, what does a synergy like that actually look like in practice? It means consolidating shared terminal costs, streamlining completely separate IT systems into one cohesive platform, and cutting out redundant shipping routes. That foundational efficiency was absolutely critical because almost immediately after finding their footing, boom, they had to navigate the unprecedented challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Moving on to Section 2, the massive profit turnaround. Look at this contrast. Back in fiscal year 2018, while they were still integrating those 3 parent companies, ONE recorded a loss of $586 million. But the very next year, back in the black. And then, by fiscal year 2021, that number skyrocketed to a staggering forecast of $15.39 billion in profit after tax. Wow, that is a monumental leap from the red straight into historic profitability. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the context behind those profit margins. In 2021, ONE crushed it with an EBIT margin, that's earnings before interest and taxes, of 53%. Compare that to the industry peer average of just 40%. This proves their success wasn't just about riding a pandemic wave of high freight rates, it is heavily rooted in pure operational excellence and yield management. If you aren't familiar with yield management, in the shipping world, it basically means squeezing the absolute highest value out of every single inch of space on a vessel. You prioritize higher paying cargo, you optimize exactly where empty containers are repositioned globally so space isn't wasted, and you deploy ships on the absolute most profitable routes. They simply operated far more efficiently than their top competitors. Which brings us to Section 3, Navigating Supply Chain Shocks. So we all know what happened in 2020. The question is, how was this level of operational success achieved while the entire world locked down and supply chains were fracturing? Well, it comes down to these structured resilience actions. As an essential service, Step 1 was making the hard commitment to continue operations worldwide, despite intense work-from-home restrictions. Step 2 involved intense collaboration to bust through supply chain bottlenecks. Instead of just sitting in congested ports, they rerouted vessels and chartered extra loader ships to keep cargo moving. Step 3, maximize deployment. They got every available vessel and container out onto the water. And crucially, Step 4 was supporting the human element. They ensured crew changes and welfare needs were met during an incredibly stressful time for global seafarers, who were essentially trapped at sea due to border closures. Now, it's vital to note that despite this formidable operational success, the shipping industry is continuously exposed to global events. Short-term uncertainties definitely remain. The data explicitly points out that disruptions to the global supply chain aren't fully over, citing geopolitical hurdles like the tensions between Ukraine and Russia, as well as the ongoing challenges of global inflation. These are simply the complex, neutral facts of the modern macro environment that any logistics giant has to continuously manage. All right, Section 4, the $20 billion investment. We've seen the turnaround. Now let's talk about the transformation phase. What exactly does a company do when it generates over $15 billion in profit? Well, they reinvest it right back into the foundation of the business. WAN plans to invest more than $20 billion by the year 2030 to enhance its core fleet and terminals. $20 billion. The sheer magnitude of this capital injection is stunning. But it isn't just about reacting to today's demand. It's about future-proofing their global operations for decades to come. Let's move to this timeline and see how this actually builds out. To fulfill growing demand, they committed to adding over 520,000 TEU, which stands for 20-foot equivalent units, essentially your standard shipping container. The progression is incredibly rapid. In 2022, they phased in 4 12,000 TEU vessels. In 2023, 4 15,000 TEU and 6 enormous 24,000 TEU vessels joined the fleet. And by 2024, they are adding another 6 15,000 TEU and 10 7,000 TEU vessels. The scale of this new steel hitting the water is just phenomenal. But wait, they aren't stopping there. Their long-term strategy actually requires consistently adding approximately 150,000 TEU of new building capacity every single year. You might ask, why is such a constant refresh necessary? Because vessels become obsolete much faster today. This isn't just about the physical wear and tear of crossing the ocean. It's largely driven by strict new environmental regulations, making older engines non-compliant. You literally have to constantly replace older, carbon-heavy vessels to maintain a state-of-the-art fleet. And that leads us perfectly into Section 5, achieving net zero emissions. That constant need to replace older ships brings us directly to arguably the most critical global mandate of our time. You see, these multi-billion-dollar investments aren't just for expanding cargo capacity. They are strictly aligned with one's decarbonization strategy. Their definition of success now includes taking firm actions and replacing obsolete assets to achieve absolute net zero emissions by 2050. And here is why this matters deeply to you, the viewer. The phone in your hand, the clothes on your back, they likely traveled on one of these ships. Their carbon footprint is inextricably linked to our carbon footprint. For one, the green strategy is indistinguishable from their core business strategy. But you know, sustainability is about more than just carbon. One's holistic approach incorporates essential environmental, social, and governance pillars. On the social side, they are super focused on talent management and human rights. For a seafarer who might be on a vessel for 6 months at a time, that kind of support is a critical lifeline. They are also actively engaged in corporate social responsibility through things like the One Ocean Project, which focuses heavily on marine conservation and biodiversity. Then, on the governance side, they are strictly managing their supply chain ethics, collecting vital greenhouse gas emission data, and ensuring top-class global cybersecurity. Because let's be real, a truly resilient company has to protect its data and its people just as fiercely as the environment. So, what does this all mean? It leaves us with this crucial, provocative question to ponder. As global infrastructure demands continue to grow year after year, driven by expanding populations and relentless supply chain needs, can the heavy-duty shipping industry truly achieve absolute net zero by 2050? Well, one is certainly putting $20 billion on the table to prove that it can. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope this structured look at their turnaround and future strategy leaves you with a much deeper understanding of the complex and truly fascinating future of global trade. I'll see you next time.